Today I'm joined by Dave Krugman, a New York-based photographer whose work has reshaped how we see both the streets and the digital world. From his early fascination with the darkroom to building immersive projects like Drive and Drip Drop, Dave has created entire ecosystems around photography that merge storytelling, technology, and community. His neo-noir style turns everyday city life into cinematic worlds, and he's been methodical in the way he curates his releases, each one a deliberate piece of a larger vision that builds an entire world around his art. Dave has also been an essential part of building the market for photography on the blockchain. Recognized as one of the earliest photographers to mint his work, and beyond his own practice, he's been a champion for artists and an active participant in the ecosystem, supporting others by collecting their work and helping the community grow. Beyond the images themselves, his projects are about connection, creativity, and empowering others to see themselves as artists. I'm excited to dive into his journey, his philosophy, and the way he's been pushing the boundaries of photography in both the traditional and blockchain spaces. Without further ado, here's my conversation with Dave Krugman. When's the first time you picked up a camera? Let's start there.
So I used to go to the summer camp in, upstate Vermont area. And this story I've told a few times, but I'm sure many people have never heard it. But essentially the TLDR is I was at the summer camp and I was up in the woods and I was really, really interested in woodworking. And so a couple times I had gone to this woodworking course and just really liked working with my hands and liked creating something tangible, something like you could just work your way towards creating this object and the attention to detail and focusing on something and, you know, the whole protocol of how to do it safely. That was really interesting to me. And one day I went and there was no workstations left. They're like, we filled up today. So, you got to find something else to do. And somebody in the class looked up and was like, oh, next door they're doing a darkroom photography class. Why don't you go check that out? And so I kind of shuffled out of there, dragging my feet with my head down. And I went up to this, shack in the woods and there was a sign on the door and it said please don't open the door, please knock, development in process. And so I was like, that's weird. So I knocked and they're just like, just a minute. And, I'm sitting out there kicking the sand around. I'm like 8 or 9 years old, super, super young. And finally they open the door and it's like this wash of red light and I can hear the trickle of water. Dark rooms always have water running. And they close the door behind me and they're like, welcome to the world of photography. And that, I swear that day is just burned into my mind, like a negative, seriously. Because, little did I know at the time what an impactful moment that would be. But along every stage of my life and my career, and when people ask me, you generously just did, that's the moment that's the anchor. Like that really is the moment that lights up like fire in my mind. Like that was the time where I first discovered this beautiful alchemy, this chemical process, this incredible, almost magic um development process of analog photography. And I remember just sitting there watching at first I was watching somebody else do it and they put their paper into the developer fluid and you just see all those silver crystals start to flip. If they've been exposed to light, if they have been exposed to light, either way they flip, they're kind of have two different poles. And that is what reveals the image. It's like this binary process of it's either, black or white. And that creates a whole world out of those two options. And so, that whole binary thing connecting to digital photography and computing and coding, a thread runs through this all, and I'm so grateful to have stumbled across it that day.
It sounds like a Cameron Crowe type movie, out of just this magical moment where you just walk in and they're just like, welcome to the world.
Exactly. It
That's
was that. It was this cinematic. I mean, it's funny what we all do with our memories, where now it's a movie in my head, and I'm sure I was
right.
just this awkward kid stumbling into a random class, but it did open up my world, and I was somebody that I was always super interested in visual arts. When I was a kid, my father used to read books to us every night, without fail, and complex books too, Watership Down and Foundation series by Isaac Asimov. And that kind of, from a very young age, I realized how much we could visualize in our minds. And it built this incredible internal world for me to be exposed to so many incredible stories. And while he was reading, I would doodle and I would use tracing paper and I would, there was this guy named Ed Emberley who would make these like how to draw books, and I would be doing that. And so I was kind of listening to the stories, but I was drawing on the side and kind of splitting my visual and audio worlds. Um, and I could just never quite translate what was in my mind onto the paper in a way
Yeah.
that I could share my internal world with other people. And that was always very frustrating for me. And then when I discovered photography, I was like, oh my God, like I can instantaneously transfer what's in my mind's eye into a displayable way so I can connect with other human beings about the way I see the world.
Were your parents artists?
So they're both artists in their own way. They're not
Okay.
like career artists.
Yeah.
Um, but my mom is a chef, an incredible chef and cook, and ran catering companies and um, worked in restaurants and was just the culinary arts. And the other part of my life is that I'm obsessed with food and cooking, and um, I love bringing people together over food. That's a whole thing we can get into too. But
Yeah.
the point being, I look at cooking as like edible sculpture. Um, it really is. It's like it's chemistry. It's building. It is an art form. And I think one of the highest art forms, honestly. So she had that creative influence on me. I like grew up literally with her since I could stand. I was in the kitchen with her cooking.
Okay.
And I've continued to this day, which is a very big, big part of my life. And then my father is a creative technologist. So he was involved with information technology at universities, and basically, is one of the early architects of the world that we so enjoy, which is this interconnected online landscape. So he did his a graduate program at Boston University, where I went as well. And he, after his graduate program, he stayed and ended up, running a lot of the technology and network technologies there within those. So I kind of had this dual perspective. Like I feel like my mother kept me very like grounded and social and in this hospitality mindset and this creative experimentation mindset. And then my father, as well as being a creative technologist and like a network theory guy, um, he was also a hobbyist photographer, as was my grandfather. And so I got from my father this mix of like network theory. uh my ability to operate in social media spaces comes from his tutelage and guidance over the
Yeah.
years. And also, he was always quick. If he saw me catch interest in something, he was very quick to support me. So when I got really into guitar, he made sure I had a good guitar. When I got into photography, he made sure that I had the equipment I needed to be a photographer. And then when he realized how much momentum I was getting as a photographer and how much interest I had in this craft, he pulled me aside and was like, "Listen, man, like if you're serious about this, um, first of all, you should pursue it." Which it's great to get that level of support from your parents
Totally.
to do something so risky. And
Yeah.
but he also was like, also your grandfather was a camera collector, and like here's a box of like shrink wrapped Leica M series lenses and
Oh my
bodies
God.
and Hasselblad kits, and
Oh my God.
I just have the most incredible collection of photography gear, like astounding level of vintage gear that has really allowed me to have a career that I never could have afforded to use some of this gear.
Yeah.
And it's helped me differentiate my output from a lot of other photographers, because I have unique setups and things I've built together and Frankenstein together in ways that just people don't do. And so a lot of people look at my images and they're like, wait, like how did you get that particular, depth of field, or how did you get that particular sense of like, it's almost filmic? I'm like, oh, because I'm shooting on these like, 50, 60-year-old cinema lenses that were adapted to digital bodies. And sometimes I'm shooting on film still. So it's just this crazy like luck of the universe being like, long before I was even a twinkle in someone's eye, I was like, this world was being set up for me.
It's
in
destined.
order to have access to some of the best imaging gear in the world. So really, really grateful for that to my whole family.
Yeah, so you kind of like you discovered photography at like 9, 8, 9 years old, when you walk in this dark room, but like where did you start to like discover your style? Because like, like I fell in love with landscapes by kind of like
Mhm.
looking at like Ansel Adams' work or like playing around in like, like guidebooks and stuff like that. Where did you kind of like find like not only the street, like your love for street photography, but your actual style for it?
Yeah, that's so interesting. Um,
And what did you start with too? Three-part question.
okay, so the first time like my brain really started firing as a photographer,
Yeah.
I had gotten this like 1.2 megapixel Olympus camera. I don't even
Bro, I
remember what it was
remember
called.
those.
Yeah.
Yes, I know what you're
But it was
talking about.
like, it was a little point and shoot
Yep.
and it had a macro mode. And my aunt, who's another wonderful mentor to me, has a beautiful garden. And I was in her garden, sunny day, and I was just going up to these like bumblebees. And I was just like, click, like shoot, like click, click, macro. And then I, would zoom in on the back of the camera and I couldn't believe the level. There was like a whole world opened up to me. Because
Right.
for those that have never shot with a true macro lens, um, what it does is it allows you to like, it almost expands space time. Because like you can get more out of a square inch with a macro lens than you can see with your own eyes. So it's
Mhm.
like you start to realize that the world is even bigger than you thought it was because by looking at like the smallest parts. And that there's something really interesting and fractal there. But I remember that moment of just like running to over into the house and my dad was there. I was like, look at this bee. You can see all the pollen on its legs. And he was like, yeah, that's really cool. And that's when I was like, okay, I want to be a photographer, like for real. Like this isn't just like something I'm curious about. It's like I want to do this forever. Um, which is funny because it's like the most benign shot. Um,
But you get obsessed with
and
that detail, that
yeah,
structure
it was
that
just
you've
like I
never
couldn't
seen.
believe how you could like convert just light into something so stunning and visually
Yeah.
compelling. It was like this is so cool. I can go show people and they can see something that like I could give them access to something they can't see with their own eyes. And like
It's
that was like,
amazing that
oh
you
my
had
God.
that though, like that mindset at that age,
Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of it's wild. It's like most kids are out like, shooting birds where you're out like actually like capturing this detail. It's like it's interesting. It's like you were always kind of like this introspective like growing up person like trying to find some beauty in the world.
Yeah. I mean, all credit to my family for instilling that in me from a young age. Um, but then I kind of slipped into this mode that I think a lot of photographers slip into. And I think it's a necessary part of the journey, which is like, you don't really know what you like shooting. You just start shooting.
Yeah.
And I would just shoot everything. I would take portraits. I would do just landscape stuff with like film cameras. And I kept signing up for more darkroom classes, like all the way through middle school and high school. And then I got to college. And again, I was like, in college, I was doing a lot of pattern finding, which I think will become relevant to the rest of our conversation. But I had this one uh, album on. I was actually on Google Plus. I'm sure you remember Google Plus. Like
Of
you feel like an
course.
OG in a way that
Yep.
you were probably on Google Plus. Um,
Dude, I used Picasso as my photo editor back in the day.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yep.
So anyway, there was this like brief moment in photography history online where Google Plus was like they were trying to build a social network on Google, and I thought it had a lot of potential. I think it was mismanaged, but that's another
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
Anyway, I started organizing things into albums, and that helped me realize like, oh, the power of cohesion is something that I should be thinking about. And so actually, I've never said this on any podcast, but I had this album. I'm sure it's still there. It's called Compositions, and it was just like I would just go out and find like mechanical infrastructure that almost looked like modern art. So it'd be like pipes that were like, perfectly cut through a frame. And I would just
Yeah.
try to like find a sense of balance and weight in each frame, even of these like completely benign and mundane scenes. And I just found it so compelling. Like, and I'm sure if I looked at it now, I'd be like, yeah, this is like really like stupid. But that did set me up for this like pattern recognition approach to photography. Um, Once I started to really master the camera, this was also really good training for like just mastering the camera because it was just this repetitive, simplistic exercise that I would just do every single day. I'd get a few and I'd post them and people would like them. And once I got all like the mechanics of photography down, it started to feel like more of an extension of my body. And then I was like, oh, I actually do have a sort of visual um interest in kind of what I would call like neo-noir, which is these like just like 1920s meets 2049, where it's like this kind of mashup, and this is all very inspired by science fiction, like Blade Runner, Isaac Asimov novels, um, The Matrix, The Fifth Element. Like these are all neo-noir world building exercises. And so, I always loved New York because we'd visit my family up here. And when I'd come here, I'd see the steam in the streets and the rain and the colors bleeding into the asphalt. And I was like, oh, this looks like Blade Runner, and this looks like The Matrix. And then I really started to lock in on like, wow, this is like actually my point of view here. And then the thing that helped me really accelerate that and solidify that and build a brand around that and, build a career was Instagram. And I was really early to Instagram, and I kind of understood from the psychology perspective, like what was about to happen with Instagram. Um, and but the Instagram was like this incredible feedback loop of like produce, receive feedback, produce, receive feedback, produce, receive feedback. And that to me is like one of the most profound creative engines, those feedback loops. And so the people that get into those cycles of sharing, engaging with other people's work, recreating, sharing, engaging with other people's work, building relationships around the work. Like there's no better way to fast forward your creative practice and get those reps in, get those 10,000 hours in. And so that's what happened to me. And I kind of just went deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole of this neo-noir style. And I'm still learning about how to make the best images in that style. But yeah, that's my core like visual style. And then I broke off into other directions that I would call like peripheral to that neo-noir style. Like for example, Drive and Drip Drop, which is my project of 1,111 pictures of puddles in Times Square, which is like Drip Drop is like the atmosphere and like the abstract textural world of neo-noir. And like the cars, Drive is like the stories and personality and like vehicular identity of neo-noir New York. And then the neo-noir, like one of ones, like my last project, Night Moves, are kind of like the characters and like the core like storytelling vehicles or vessels of my neo-noir world.
You're
So
almost
that's
like
kind of how
creating
everything fits together.
you're like creating a world.
Yes.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's so hard, I feel like, to curate a collection or to fit something into something. And I feel like you're not only like creating an ecosystem, but you're creating a whole world around this like the neo-noir, subject. I want to know where did you start with the Drive collection? Did you just start shooting cars and just kind of like fit this into the narrative, or how did this work? Because I feel like
Yeah.
you've been shooting cars for a while, and it was just like this works very well with what I'm doing.
So yeah, some alpha for people. I have an Instagram account um, called Secret Street. And if you go there, you can see the origins of Drive, because basically what's happening is I got very, very popular on Instagram very early on. And I've always had this policy of like, try to respond to everybody, try to be an engaged member of the community. I just think it's a much healthier way to use social media if you're going to use it. Like, don't be a lurker. Don't sit there behind your phone, only consuming and getting bitter about other people winning. Like you have to put into the system if you're going to take out of it. Otherwise, you're just in a very precarious position mentally. And so I was always like, I'm going to try to reply to like every comment, every DM. And I just was really conscious of like, I want to use this as a platform to teach and to educate, um, and to learn myself, because the best way to learn is to teach.
Yeah,
So one of the main questions I would get in my DMs is, "Oh my god, I love your photography. I have $1,000 to my name. It's my life savings. What camera should I buy in order to take pictures like you?"
right.
And I was just like, "Oh my god, this is such a misunderstanding of what we're all doing here." Um, and my answer was like, "You're holding the camera in your hand right now as you're typing. It's your phone. Like your
Right.
phone is the best tool that you have." Because this was kind of the beginning of like seriously good camera phones, the early iPhones. And so again, like I think it's really easy to say some platitude like that, like, oh, the best camera is the one you're with. Like, It's so easy to just say that. So I was like, you know what? I have to figure out a way to prove this to people. And so I was like, I'm going to start a secret account called Secret Street. And I'm going to, it's kind of like a Beeple everyday project. Like every single day, I'm going to take at least one picture that's worth posting. And I'm only going to use my phone and I'm only going to use free apps. So it was all shot on different versions of iPhone. It started on iPhone 4S. And I only used Visco, the SCO, the app to
Yep,
edit
I
because it was
remember
at the
that.
time. At the
Yep.
time, it was like a free editing app, and you could
Yep.
just do film emulation on it. So it gives these iPhone shots a little filmy kind of look. And
I
every day
remember
I
it.
would just like go out and as I'm walking around, maybe I'm going to meet a friend, maybe I'm going to a work meeting, maybe I'm going to lunch, maybe I'm going to meet my sister for a coffee, and I would just see something and I'd be like Secret Street, and I'd snap it. And you know, one of the motifs that I started collecting, because I like to work in motifs, and constraints are actually what allow you to be creative. So like you have to limit what you're looking at in order to find the gems. And one of those things was like I started to notice these cars that kind of, I grew up collecting Matchbox cars and Hot Wheels and stuff like that.
Right.
And I was like, I loved that. And they're so collectible and cars are collectible. And I was like, oh, how cool would it be if I just like every time I see a car that looks like a Hot Wheels car, I shoot it from the same angle. It's all 3:2. It's all shot with iPhone. And, if I just do that once in a while, in a few years, I'll have an incredible book I can make or a body of work that is, around that topic. Now, this was in like 2012 or 13 or 14, like somewhere way, way back in the early days of Instagram. And so I just started religiously doing that and documenting this motif. And it wasn't until, 2021 where I never did that book. I never did a deeper body of work around it. And then when I understood what, networked art was and how tokenizing art could unlock a lot of value for artists, I was like, oh my God, this is why I was shooting Drive. This is the canvas for this body of work that I've made over a decade. And I finally had like this work finally has like a proper home, because like to me, this is a project that always had to be a collectible project. Like it was built to be collected by other people in the same way that I had a little Hot Wheels garage in my room as a kid, and I would like swap out cars, and like I would, find cool ones, and they would have like, one would be a little monster truck, and one would be a race car, and one would be like, a pickup truck or something like that. They'd all have a little character and personality to them. And I started to see that in the world all around me. And just by embedding them in the blockchain, I could create these almost tactile, physical, tradable cars. And so, yeah, that's basically the origins of Drive, were just my innate desire to be a pattern collector. And those patterns ended up fitting like this beautiful puzzle piece into this larger effort that I'm undertaking on blockchain.
And for those that don't know what the Drive collection is, what is the Drive collection?
Yeah, so the Drive collection is, there's been two seasons or laps, as I call them. But first in 2021, we released 111 different cars minted to the Ethereum blockchain.
And these are all just
Um,
photos of cars.
Photos of cars, but they all match, and it's very important that they all match in this like perfect little, almost like they're boxed, like they're
Like
just
the Hot
boxed
Wheels
by the
and the
composition.
case.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So like, you know, a drive car is not a car that is shot from 3/4 angle. Like a drive car is not a car that is shot from the front. Like it has to match this pattern, and then
Yeah.
that makes it a drive car. So anyway, we released them all in 2021. It was a private sale to like, an allow list that I collected over my time in the space from 2020. And um, it was at a time where uh, photography was starting to really catch some wind in the sales, and so it immediately sold out. And then there was only 8 auctions, which are the Drive Lap One Grail cars, and those auctions went viral. They went crazy. The whole project did over 100 ETH in a day. It changed my life. It was like the most profound. It was the biggest success I'd ever had in my career and in photography, anything like that.
Yeah.
And it really solidified my dedication to this space, because with the support of like this global network of people, living at the bleeding edge of the internet, I could make projects that were fully mine, fully owned by me, and with no compromise, no commercial. I didn't have to fit this into some other commercial framework. And I was I was able to, make more than I could make in a traditional job just by using my own art. Now, the important thing about Drive, that was lap one. The important thing about Drive is whenever I release a new body of work on Drive, um, I always retain 20% of the supply. And so there's, let's say there's 80 cars, or let's say there's 100 cars, I'll sell 80 and I'll keep 20. And now the interesting part is with those 20 that I keep, I run photography contests. And the only way to unlock those extra cars, which are like weird, rare, funky ones, um, you have to enter one of my races on Twitter, which is just a photo contest. And so I say, okay, it's race 6 or 7 or whatever. And then all the holders of that project and people from the general community submit their best version of them taking a picture on their phone in the style of Drive. And I go through and I pick my favorite, and then I airdrop them that extra token. And so it's a way that this project has what I call potential energy, like stored inside of it. It's like a spring that's been wound up, or it's an engine that's just like I can constantly pour a little bit of gas into this engine. And instead of this project being released in 2021 and then it, fades off into the annals of crypto art, it's an active, living, breathing ecosystem that is still activated every single day. We just did a race last week, and a lap one holder won, and now they're getting an airdrop token from 2021, where the floor right now is like 1.69 ETH or something like that. So
That's crazy.
it's over $5,000. So it's like, it's the incentives are so high for other people to go out and participate in this creative effort. So collectively, we're all building this like mimetic structure around pictures of cars. But what this project really is, and I think people that don't look deep into the project don't realize this, is like, this is a creative encouragement engine. It's like I'm creating armies of photographers wandering around looking for drive cars all over the world. And because the incentive is so high, they're going out and I get DMs from people all the time being like, I never thought I was really a photographer, or I could make good pictures or make something that I'd want to share with a wider community. And like, they're like, what I've realized from participating in this project is that like, I'm an artist too. I'm a photographer too. And I'm like, exactly. And so that's the power of this technology to me, beyond the, financial freedom I've been able to find by participating in these ecosystems. And, crowdfunding my career through this technology.
Right.
You can create like hyperstructures that actually can change the world and can change somebody's individual experience of what it means to be an artist, or that they might be an artist. And I think
Yeah.
that's happening not just with me, but with a lot of different art in this space. I've seen many, many collectors, start making art and start doing all sorts of different things with creativity. And Drive is just one example of how you can build an infrastructure where the output is more artists.
Yeah, it's like this networking effect of like fungus, you know? It's
Oh
like
yeah,
you're
now you're
yeah,
talking my language.
it's like you're networking out with this kinetic energy that's just like potentially creating ultimately like this giant community of
Yeah.
people who not only like support the project but are like I guess not I hate the word invested but deeply invested, not with money but like with their time, which is so much
Hmm.
more important, and like their souls and their hearts. So it's like you're getting people involved in a way that's not just about the money, but like it's an actual world, an ecosystem that's literally creating this fungi effect.
Yeah, and what's interesting about that is, and the fungi thing is really important because um I'm not sure if you're like baiting me into my like
You know I am.
mycelium thesis, but
You know I am.
I appreciate it. But basically, like, there's this book called Entangled Life that compares internet systems to mycelium networks. And when I was building these projects, I studied the way that mycelium networks operate, and I made sure that everything that mycelium networks do, we have some analog happening on digital networks. So the cool thing about the Drive contests is it's actually this network flywheel of, we're in an attention economy, and
Mhm.
attention accrues around these tokens, and that the tokens are containers for attention capital. The more attention something gets, the more value accrues around that container. and you can trade those containers, you can move them, you can store them, you can give them to someone else. But the thing that gives value to that is this attention cycle that we're all in together. So the contests are a way to not only encourage creativity, but I don't just get access to their mind share, I get access to their networks.
Hmm.
So if somebody with 10,000 followers is submitting a drive car to my contest, I don't just get their eyes, I get the eyes of everybody who is looking at them. Because one of the parts of the drive contest is that you have to reshare the race so that more people see the race. And so it's this just very simple, engagement tool that not only does it encourage creativity and help spread the memetics and gain mind share. So anytime somebody sees an old vintage car that's like isolated and from the side, like they can't even help but be like, "Fuck, it's a drive car." Like they're like, "It's Dave's. That's a Dave car or what a drive
That's a
car."
Dave's car.
They do it. I get texts like once a day. I get a text of somebody being like, "Is this a good one?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's a great one. Good job." But like, so I get the mind share, but I also get this like attention share and this like market share that's happening in these online spaces. And that's a lot how mushroom networks work too. Like there's not central hubs, but there's hubs of like nutrients flowing through this network. And if you can build effective networks, you can kind of maximize your ability to like generate energy from those networks. And for mushroom networks, it's carbon and phosphorus and sugars. And for human networks, it's Ethereum, Bitcoin, USD, it's relationships, it's food, it's energy, it's resources. Like all of life is in one giant network system. So like taking from nature how those networks have evolved over billions of years to create efficiencies, you can just look at those and replicate them in online spaces and they will work because that's just like there hasn't been a better system yet. Nature is like the best systems that have ever been designed because they're the only systems that can exist in this particular uh, realm of physics that we inhabit.
Do you think you got this mindset from your dad?
Um, I don't think I got that direct. Like
But
I've
like
taught
this
him a lot about
networking,
mycelium.
this
The networking
networking, yeah,
thing,
yeah,
yes. Um, the networking thing I absolutely got from my father. The mycelium aspect of it was kind of my own explorations, but connected to a lot of what he told me. I've since, shared everything I've learned about mycelium networks. Again, that book is called Entangled Life by Merlin Sheldrake. It's like
I read it because
so,
of you. You said it
yeah,
on the
it's
space, and
so
I read it because
interesting.
of you. It's
Yeah, it's so
fascinating.
interesting.
Yeah,
And yeah, so I ended up, giving that back to him. And then the feedback loop between me and my father is like, has been going on as long as I've lived and will go on as long as I live. And so, yeah, very grateful for his just support and education over the years. But I think the biggest gift he gave me was like the gift of curiosity and of just being able to actually pursue what I wanted to pursue. A lot of parents, um, they have a vision for what their kids are going to do and what's smart and what's best. And it's out of love, they'll restrict what they, allow when kids are growing up. And I was
of
raised in a
course.
very free environment of, here's what we think, but you're growing up in a different world than we grew up in. So why don't you figure it out? And that led to a lot of, disasters for me that I inflicted upon myself. But at the end of the day, after everything I've been through and um, all the different false starts and attempts and failures, at the end of the day, I'm making a living, living in my favorite city in the world, doing
Totally.
exactly what I want to do every day. And that to me is freedom and that's sovereignty and blockchain and crypto and social media has allowed me to create systems where I can exist with that sovereignty. And a lot of people in this world are doing things all day that they don't want to be doing. And I realize the immense privilege of being able to even say that I can do that. I realize some people just never are given that choice. But all I'm expressing is my gratitude for being put into a position where I could, you know, find this narrow path through a very um, capitalist and corporate world where technology was able to unlock a lot of abundance for me and for my communities.
Yeah. I think it's like when you choose to be an artist, like no one really chooses it, to be able to make money. Like
Yeah.
that's not usually, yeah, like it's not usually, yeah, I'm gonna become an artist and I'm gonna get rich. It's just not. So when you decided to kind of like take this on, what did you go to school for?
So this is actually a pretty important part of the story. I'm glad you asked.
Yeah,
I actually studied psychology. Um,
fascinating. Did you
yeah,
graduate?
and in psychology, I really, really gravitated towards two subjects. One was drugs and behavior, and the other was evolutionary psychology. Actually, three. And then the third one was abnormal psychology. So, a couple insights from each. One, let's start with abnormal psychology because that's the most abstract connection here.
Yeah.
So, I had this incredible professor at Boston University, and he would basically be like, why do we study abnormal psychology? And abnormal psychology, for those that might not know, is basically like schizophrenia, it's obsessive compulsive disorder, anxiety disorders, depressive disorders, substance abuse disorders. It's everything that's like the outsides of the bell curve. It's like these are situations that are, you know, abnormal,
Yep.
like it says in the title. But he would say, why do we study abnormal psychology? And he's like, in order to understand what normal, quote unquote, psychology is, you need to understand what the outliers are. You need to see where the boundaries are. Because once you know the boundaries and what we consider abnormal psychology, what is more, middle ground psychology is actually like what exists outside of abnormal. So it's like things are defined by their opposites. That has translated to what I think is like a really deep understanding of light. Because, I think that light is defined by shadow and shadows are defined by light. And we always think, oh, it's light or shadow. And it's not. It's like it's this spectrum, this beautiful spectrum all the way from the visible to the invisible. And that light and form and color and subject, this is all defined by the variance on that spectrum. So if you want to study light, study shadow. If you want to study shadow, study light. And that, what he said in abnormal psychology really stuck with me. And like I kind of converted that mindset into my practice. So I thought that was really interesting. It also helped me understand a lot about anxiety and depression and stuff like that too, which I've dealt with at many points in my life. So that was really interesting. Um, Now to uh, drugs and behavior. So drugs and behavior was a really interesting thing to study because this was right as Facebook was starting to really become popular. Um, for reference, I'm 38 years old. So like, I'm of the first generation that like at a critical time in my life was exposed to social media. I'm grateful that I didn't grow up with social media until a certain point.
Yeah.
I don't know how kids today are handling that. It's just
Can't
so
even
crazy.
imagine.
Can't even
Yeah.
imagine. But what I learned, we learned, classic conditioning and operant conditioning and so many different types of like how the human mind works, about mob mentality, about momentum based thinking, about um, just so many like logical fallacies and like gambling and just like literally everything about how the human mind works and what the underlying psychology of that is. And like so much of what we experience in this life and how we act in this life, you can just replicate that with rats. Like you can be like, this is exactly like we're mammals. Like we are not that complex um, in the grand scheme of the universe. So that helped me really understand how social media was functioning and how it would function in the future, which is the key thing because I was able to get ahead of the curve with social media because everything I had learned in psychology, I just saw it mapped out perfectly to what these social media companies were doing. And then I started looking into it and I'm like, how is social media so addictive? How are they so good at keeping us here? And what you'll realize if you just scrape the even very top level of that surface is that it's like the highest paid psychologists in the world work for Meta. They're not at a private practice helping people cure depression. They're helping people build systems of addiction at a scale that is in the billions. And so obviously I have a lot of good things to say about social media as it's forever changed my life and it's given me freedom in so many ways. But you have to recognize what's happening here, which is that they are taking advantage of your primal psychology in a way that is almost irresistible. And now that they've basically moved most of society, to this platform. And so a lot of your relationships, a lot of your day-to-day back and forth with people is happening in these social spaces, and they're the ones controlling all the levers. It's like the Wizard of Oz. It's like, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. But behind that curtain is like, they're manipulating the world at a global scale. And this is not even a conspiracy. Like, this is factual
Facts. Yep.
facts. So anyway, studying psychology as an artist who knew instinctively that the more people see my work, the more value I can accrue as an artist, I immediately was like, they're building a system that I can use to spread my messages and my art. And I can operate here in a way that also has those psychological hooks in it. And, my whole thing was like, I'll try to use it for good. I'll try to educate. I'll try to make beautiful things. I'll try to talk about things that matter to me. And I'll try to create a system by which like all ships rise with the tide. So, I started just teaching, and I started hosting meetups in New York City, where I'm like, oh, just come meet me at this bar. We'll all talk about photography, or come meet me at this park and we'll all take portraits of each other. And part of that was like, I just genuinely love doing that stuff. But the other part of that was like, this is how you build network. And by hosting a meetup, I'm basically making myself the hub. And so all the network has to flow through this hub. And when people think of, listening about the New York photography scene, like, who are the people in the New York photography scene? My name was always at the top of that list, because myself and people like Jay and Silva, like, we would just host meetups every single week. And, by the end of it, we were having like 400 people show up to our meetups. And so each one of those 400 people has their own network, like we said before. And so as values flows through networks, the bigger the hub you are in that network, the more value flows through you. And that's still true today with blockchain and social media and the world in general. Effective distribution businesses, like, let's take a really classic old school one, like the New York Times. Why is the New York Times so valuable? Because they are a distribution hub for information. And so what social media did for all of us is it allowed us to become our own distribution hubs. And if you can build a big enough distribution hub, you can accrue enough value from that network, and you can actually make a living off of it. And so that was how, drugs and behavior and conditioning educated me about how to get my work in front of more people. The other one is, just to check my 3 boxes here, is evolutionary psychology. So evolutionary psychology goes a little bit deeper than drugs and behavior. Drugs and behavior was like, how do we hijack the dopamine systems of humans and animals in order to create desired outcomes? Evolutionary psychology is like, okay, that's the software. Let's talk about the hardware. Like, what is the actual hardware of the human body and mind that is the scaffolding for the software which we're running with drugs and behavior? So the hardware we're built on, this period of technological abundance that we're in, is like faster than a strobe flash on a camera. It's like, this is such a small part of our evolutionary history. This like what we're doing right now, right?
Yep.
This is a
Milliseconds.
miracle.
Yeah.
This is a miracle that this exists at all. Humans have been evolving for, if you include our previous species that we evolved from, billions of years. If you include more recent species, hundreds of millions of years. If you then, going all the way up to Homo sapien, which is hundreds of thousands of years. So let's just say for hundreds of thousands of years, we had a survival pressure from the outside environment. It's the hardest thing to survive in the world. The entire world is always trying to kill you. So what that requires is, like, you have to develop incredible survival instincts and survival systems. And over the geological time of evolution, or the evolutionary time scale, like, some things just get hard coded in. Like, you'll still get this sense of anxiety or fear if a shadow passes over you. People are deathly afraid of spiders and snakes. There's all these things, like, being afraid of monsters under the bed. These are things that, like, actually were protective, and these are hardwired, and these systems of anxiety are hardwired into us because our ancestors were the ones that when a shadow passed over them, they got the fuck out of there, you know?
Right.
And the ones that didn't make it through that survival got picked up by gigantic eagles. You know, they'll
Right.
find a skull from an early hominid and they have scratch marks and beak marks in the back of their eye sockets because these were being, you know, we were being predated by these gigantic birds of prey.
What
And
a
so
time.
the hominids that were really good at, you know, getting into shelter and under cover when there were shadows above them, you know, ended up passing down those genes to us. My point in that very morbid example, apologies to the listener,
I
is
love it.
that there's so many different patterns that we develop from a survival perspective. And relevant to this conversation, I think the most relevant one is there's a couple, but I'll start with like color theory and with pattern recognition. Like, why do people collect? What there's no, you know, right now there's not necessarily an advantage besides like gambling or an economic advantage or relationship building to collect, but like people collect things for all reasons. Like there's people that have 1,000 cookie jars. Like there's people that, you know, the stamp market is one of the biggest collectible markets in the world. Like Pokemon cards are at all-time highs. What is it about this system of collection that is so appealing to people? And it's because we're hunter-gatherers. Like we are hardwired to gather matching patterns of resources because that evolutionary behavior allowed us to store food. It allowed us to find food. It allowed us to build community. It allowed us to get resources together for times of uh, drought, for times of hunger. And it allowed us to survive winters and survive really harsh conditions and extended periods of not having food. If you're really good at collecting acorns, like you're going to have a food store. Um, and, you know, all of life does this. Like, again, squirrels are some of the best collectors, right? Um, and so the mammalian brain is extremely hardwired to hunter gather. And so, again, running newer software on older hardware, we still want, we're creating software systems that satisfy the hardware conditions. So, you know, we don't have to necessarily go out and hunt for our food. We don't have to go forage for mushrooms and wild strawberries and um, raspberries off the bush. But it's still really, really satisfying when you do, because
Right.
it really, like, in going fishing and like all these things, like staring at a fire, like these are things that are like so primally embedded in us that they're very, very satisfying. But in our digital world, many people don't have exposure to that anymore. So they replicate those behaviors by creating new systems that satisfy that hardware need. And so that's what tokens are. That's what crypto art is this kind of like innate desire to go out, recognize patterns, make sets, build things, hoard them, collect them, and then, you know, those things are assigned value by other people in the community, and you can start to build economies around them. And so that was really, really interesting to tie this evolutionary history to our modern day world. And the last thing I'll say about that before I end this insanely long rant is that's why community is so important. That's why like people will go crazy over sports teams, is because they're, you know, another evolutionary instinct that was so important to us was forming groups. And because people, you know, if you're an outcast in 100 BC, like you're not going to survive. You know, you need the support of a community in order to survive those conditions. And so that's why we're such a social species, and it's so important for us to build tribes. So it happens with sports teams, it happens with friend groups, and it happens in online social spaces, where we choose, you know, we choose a leader, we choose chieftains, and we choose what groups we want to be a part of, what groups we want to be against, and, you know, for better and for worse, this is how society is formed in real life spaces, but also in digital spaces as well.
Do you think that the availability of the Web3 space is a more democratized space as opposed to Web2? And why do you think it offers more of a networking ability than Web2 in the sense of being able to actually sell your art? Because, for example, I'm just going to give you open an Instagram page, you, curate it for a couple of years. Did you ever really sell a lot of physical art off of that Instagram page?
No.
So what makes the difference? What differentiates our space our platforms from the Web 2 platforms and being able to actually sell our art.
Yeah. So,
Yeah,
okay, there's a couple questions in there. So I'm going to try to break this down. And I'm going to say
please do.
things, I'm going to be very honest here.
Yeah,
There's a lot of
brutally.
what I would call like utopian thinking in Web3, especially in the beginning, where it's like, we're going to rebuild the world, we're going to build new systems, we're not going to replicate the systems of the past. I think we are going to replicate the systems of the past, unfortunately. Um, but, very important, but we're on a long arc towards decentralization. It doesn't mean that we go from centralized entities to decentralized entities in one giant leap. We are chipping away at centrality. And that is a long, lifelong battle. And it's a place that we might never get, but every inch along that way gives a little bit more power to the individual. That's what decentralization means.
Mhm.
So it's a worthy pursuit, this experiment that we're all doing. Are people still going to, you know, accrue value and have cabals and do insider trading and shady things in the background? Yes, it's human nature. That's going to happen.
Right.
But I think the most important distinction, or like when the first part of your question, you were like, why is this a better world for artists to get started in than Web 2? First of all, it's because it's new. There's a new network forming. And when a new network forms and you're a first mover, you're at the inside of that snowball that's rolling down a hill. The bigger that network gets, the more value flows to you because you are inside that network already. It's hard to join a tight knit network if you're at the fringes. Like if somebody artists now who want to get into Web3 now, man,
Good luck.
I would encourage them to still,
But it's
do it
hard.
and
Right.
come play. But you can't just come with 1 million Instagram followers and be like, I'm going to sell art here, because
Right.
the art that is being sold here is based on now, 5 to 7 years of consensus, of blood, sweat, and tears, of people showing up daily, sacrificing their time, their energy, their resources in order to attempt this Herculean task, this David and Goliath fight
Right.
against these centralized juggernauts who control all of the information in the world. Um, and so I still think there will be many waves of artists coming in to participate in this, but they have to be able to build that consensus. And to build that consensus takes a long time. You cannot fake that. You can fake it for a little bit, but you can't fake it long term because it's based on so much happening behind the scenes, so much effort. It's skin in the game. And I think that's actually the biggest difference between that's also true with what happened with social media. Like the best time to join Instagram was early because as the network grew, you grow with the network, right? You have that advantage. And so there was a time where Instagram was as disruptive as Web3 is to Instagram. Instagram single-handedly destroyed the magazine publishing industry. Like it just ate it up because all of a sudden the ability to build a network wasn't limited to publishers. And so I'm saying all this to say that like I don't think we're immediately going to build a better world, but there's a new network forming and there's very few people in it still. And so if you're an artist that's looking for a better solution than, just posting into the void every day on social media in a diluted network of billions of humans and soon to be billions of bots, like you should at least start building in this new network, which is an ownership layer. And to segue into your other part of the question, why I wasn't selling prints on Instagram versus why I'm able to make a living selling digital work on blockchain is because the most important innovation that's happened with blockchain technology, in my opinion, is the creation of the digital object. So like if you think about what Instagram is, like really think about like what is built there. You are renting space on a centralized server that you are saying through your own social proof that this is me, this is my identity, and this is my in for many people this is my biggest online presence. This is the digital version of me, but you don't own that space. You're renting it, and you have no control over the traffic that flows past you, through you, around you, whatever. That can change at any time. And there's no actual original instance. There's no object at the bottom of every post. That post, that image that I upload to Instagram is copied to a server, to another server, to another server, distributed on servers all throughout the world. And then when somebody loads that image on their end, on their phone, it's just showing them a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy in whatever optimized file format makes sense to flow across this network, right? And
Right.
so I can say that that's my original image, but you got to take my word for it. That's what the blockchain changes, because when I mint something for my decentralized cryptographic signature that nobody else in the world can imprint upon this file, um, it has my provenance on it. It has my wax seal on it. And it's a thing. It is an it. It's a thing, because that thing has all the thingness of an object.
Right.
Really. I'm trying not to like be pedantic, but like it literally, like, what are the qualities that an object in the real world has, right? So it's like this cup of coffee. I can hold it, I can destroy it, I can sell it, I can transfer it, I can, you know, I can collateralize it, I can, take a loan out against it. Maybe I'll get like 25 cents.
Never know.
But the point is that it has oneness. It is a thing, it is an object. And the tokenization of these works is the only way that we've so far developed to create a consensus mechanism around objecthood online. And so I'm just really stressing this point because like every other part of this conversation doesn't matter if that thing doesn't exist, if that's not
Right.
true. And so having those digital objects opens up an entirely new world for artists and for humans in general, where now anything you could do with a real world object, you can now do in online spaces. All those things I just listed. And so that just like opens up this profound amount of innovation. It changes the socioeconomics of being an online person. And like back to our other conversation about tokens, NFTs as containers for community capital and for attention markets. Like the object is the vessel. The object is the container for everything I'm building on social media. So I've created my distribution network. I've understood through my psychology studies and my experience of trial and error of building networks over a decade. Um, but where does all that value go? Right
Yeah.
now, without blockchain, all of that value flows to the centralized platform owners. We don't get anything. If you're lucky,
No.
like on YouTube and you have a great audience, like you can make some money, but
Make some.
they're making hundreds of billions of dollars, right? And we're making like, thousands or whatever. So there is this economic engine running, but we're all just like bus passengers. And blockchain is like half a car, not to get too literal, but like it's literally like you are now able to accrue, instead of just accruing attention capital to your rented Instagram profile, you can now your Instagram profile is just another engine of attention for you to drive to your actual economic engine, which is your decentralized and sovereign crypto wallet identity. And the NFTs are like buckets that you can send out into the world. People store the value of your network in them, and then that value flows back to you because you've created this hub, this like wheel and spoke model that, converts attention into currency in a way that we've never been able to do in online spaces until recently.
No, I think it's a really beautiful way to articulate it. I want to know what do you think brings the value to NFTs in the sense like, so I look at NFTs and I think for photography, it's almost like the end game, like the final boss for photography in the sense that we now have a place to leave our legacy as artists. We now have a place for provenance. We now have a place that is immutable, that we can, let our work survive forever. But my thoughts is like, I look at an NFT almost like kind of like a film negative, like it's the original. When you're looking at it from a collector's point of view, you're almost like collecting this like original stamp, like this original negative of the actual work. You can't really like print it, you can't sell it, you can't really do anything with it in the sense that it's a tangible asset, but it's the idea that you actually own the film negative of this historical piece. Because I remember when we first talked about NFTs, it was all about the engagement, exposure. The only currency is attention when it comes to the NFT. That's why memes were so prevalent in the NFT space, and they sold for so much money. You saw like these old school memes that no one knew who photographed them, and then all of a sudden they're getting the actual rights and they're getting like credit for it. So I'm wondering, like, now that we've seen like this play out the last 5 years, are we still looking at NFTs at the same way? How do you look at it? What if I'm a collector? What is the benefit of me picking up a photograph as an NFT?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so just incredible line of questioning. I'm glad you brought that up because I just had a thought that I haven't had before, and somebody who thinks too much, that catches me off guard. But bear with me for a minute. So like,
Yeah.
you brought up
Let's
all
play
these
this out.
memes, these internet memes that were like selling for millions of dollars, like
Hmm.
the I think Charlie bit my finger video, or like
The girl watching the
stuff like
house
that.
on fire.
Yeah, the girl with the house on fire, and
Yep.
uh,
The
so
Britney video.
that to me was like an example of a misunderstanding of what NFTs are. So that's a bet on the historical significance of pre-NFT memetics. Um, what a good NFT investment is actually a bet on the future value of things that are being created on chain. So in order for that investment of the girl with the, on fire in the house, like, what's the future of that meme? Like, is there a creator behind that? I know there was a creator, but like, is that creator an active, engaged participant in this economy of online objects? Or are they just cashing in on something that went viral many years ago?
Or was it a
And
bet on it going to be in a museum one day, a mimetic museum?
right. But even so, like, that is, for the amount of money being spent on those things, like, that bet is not a good bet because
Right.
it's not the institutionalization of that object doesn't do much for the value of that object if there's no attention economy maintained about it. And even there can even be attention economies that are crazy valuable, but they aren't even tied to that original creator. So like, if I was investing in NFTs at this point, I'd be like, who are the people that are best at creating, basically building like online smart contract machines that are tied to their social presence in a way where I know they're going to continue to build network and build relationships and build attention economies around their efforts as an individual artist, as part of their practice. The people that come to mind are like, Sam Spratt, Jack Butcher, Kath Samard is a great example, our mutual friend. Like, these are people who aren't just minting photographs. These are people that are like, this is part of this technology is a tool in my lifelong pursuit of building worlds around my work. And so that's what I would say for people looking at photography is like, look for the people that are innovating, that understand like the fundamental difference it makes to have a digital object, that create systems of, attention flywheels and support and thought around their projects that far surpass their own individual efforts. I'm thinking about like Sam's Masquerade, right?
Right.
Where it's not just a mask. It's not just a picture of a mask that he painted. It's like this conversation. It's this back and forth where you're actually contributing and then he's changing what he's making according to what you contributed. And, drive is like, I'm putting out this effort. I'm communicating how to participate in this effort. They're sending me work. I'm sending them work. We're creating that mycelium network. Everything is intertwined and bonded. And just like when you make rope, the more times you overlap those fibers, the stronger that rope is. And that's, that strength, that tensile strength of the connections you build within online spaces, I think represent and translate into the future value of those investments but it requires participation. So I guess my criticism of like the meme, like the pure meme stuff. I'm not talking about meme cards. Meme cards, I think are like incredible example of like high tensile strength connections on blockchain in this kind of self-perpetuating meme machine that probably will stand the test of time, in my opinion. So that's another great example. Um, but like there's just been so many attempts to push this technology or like understand this technology in ways that I don't think panned out or will pan out. And like the core use case, in my opinion, is like this is a network technology. And if you neglect the network, the containers are empty. And like we've seen this happen with artists, right? Where like they'll have a huge think about how many millionaires were made in like 2021 on like open editions and all this crazy speculative buying. Like, look, I don't blame people for doing that. The reason I never did that in that method when it was like frothy, I knew I could make a lot of money, is because I already had this thesis in place about what these things are. What are these objects? These objects are containers. If you have 8,000 empty containers, you need enough people to fill them, right? You need to create enough value to fill those containers. And if you can't do that physically or mentally, or just because your supply went so crazy in the speculative bubble that it's hard for you to manage that much surface area, then what happens is those assets fall below the price that they were purchased at, and your community of supporters turn into an army of people that are upset with you because they lost money buying something that you sold them. So what that does, that kind of poisons the well for people. And a lot of artists, rightfully so, didn't want to deal with that. And so they basically could not continue to accrue attention and value around their distribution of containers. And it kind of collapses in on itself. And it's really hard to recover from that. It's hard to exist in a social space where every time you post, someone is reminding you that they're down 90% on your art. And so I'm connecting this to what we're saying is because it's like, you have to be very careful as an artist to don't overextend yourself and promise more than you can deliver, because you have to take these vessels that we're creating very, very seriously. Because if you want a long-term career and you want to continuously experiment and make a living and sell your work to this, engaged community of collectors, you have to you really have to figure out ways to maintain that value accrual around these tokens. And so, again, just like people that are good at creating those systems of consensus around the objects that they're populating the space with are really the ones to bet on, in my opinion.
And do you still see an NFT in the sense of like an original artwork? Do you see it as now kind of like the networking effect? What is an NFT to you, for especially in photography?
In photography, I think photography has actually a very unique relationship with blockchain. I did this project Rolls in 22 or 20, actually 23. And the whole thesis was I'm going to sell this roll of film before I shoot it. So each token represents one frame on this roll of film. And I went out and shot it. And then the collector can actually reveal that. Two of them are still unrevealed, which is actually interesting and
That's
fun.
cool.
But my promo video for that, I basically explained that photography is a blockchain. Photography is a decentralized block-based time chain. And it's proof of work. Like you literally have to, there's like a chemical proof of work blockchain. And it's immutable because it's forever locked in film. You can never go back in time. The value of each block and each image is, kind of determined by a decentralized consensus mechanism all over the world. It's a very much a, like trustless global network of the visual world is like being mined every day. So it's like, and now with phones, it's like even faster, right? So we have this incredible visual record of everything that's ever happened. So it's a blockchain. So I think photography and blockchain are actually like perfect bedfellows, so to speak. And I just think the biggest problem that people have with photography, and just from my own experience and also just from seeing things that people are doing, is like photography has always lagged in art in general. Um, I think a lot of that has to do with how like the reality of it. So like people love abstraction because a Rothko is an incredibly abstract place that people can pour any emotion they want into. They can connect with a Rothko in any way that they feel. A Picasso, same way. It's like it's not so literal that the artist is showing you exactly what it is. Like the more abstract something is, the more room there is to fill, like to pour your heart into, to pour your own story into. That's why books are better than movies. A book is so sparse that you get to have every memory you've ever had constructing those worlds in your mind's eye, right? And so what's really interesting to me is that I feel like sometimes people have a hard time connecting to photography because photography is very much like, look at what I saw. It's not look what I made to many people who look at it. For me, obviously it is look at what I made. And for many artists, it's just as valuable as an art form.
Right.
But conceptually, when you're consuming photography, you're literally looking through someone else's eyes at the world. And I think it's a little harder for people to project themselves into. And that's why I think a lot of my projects that have done the best for me have been conceptual or very abstract. So Rolls did very well because it wasn't shot yet. It was all sold before there was any imagery. So it allows the mind eye to be like, what is Dave going to make? And so they could think of an infinity of images that it might be. And they can think about their own life and images they've taken and things that are important to them. And that speculative window is fun for people to play with. Drip drop is, these puddles that are just very aesthetically pleasing. When you look at a drip drop, like, people DM me all the time. They're like, do you see a dragon in this one? Do you see a flower? Do you see? And I'm like, not really, but I'm glad you do because they're so abstract that they're able to kind of, put a little bit more of themselves into that image. If I'm trying to mint a portrait of somebody, like a real human that exists, that's where it gets a little bit more like, I know what this is. This is this person in this context, and that's what the image is. And they just don't have as much ability to, paint their own world and connect it to their own life in a way that a painting or, an impressionistic movie or glitch art might have for them. I want to be clear. I don't agree with that, but that's what I feel might be happening here. And again, when I look around, a gallery or if I go into someone's home, it's more rare for me to look at their wall and see somebody looking back at me, unless it's like family portraits or something like that.
Right.
Some people do hang that type of work, but I feel like when you like, there's this kind of like subconscious sense of someone's watching you, or there's more eyes in the room. Like back to this evolutionary propensities we have, like you feel the presence of somebody when there's a set of eyes in the room. So like portrait work doesn't sell for as much as like, an abstract shot of a beach or something like that. So that's just my own musings and noodlings in my mind about how to talk about photography on blockchain. But for me, what's worked best is creating collectible systems and creating participatory community art projects that are basically utilizing the technology to do novel things. And then still in like the purest sense of photography, like Night Moves, for example, my last project, Night Moves, was a 1 of 10. And that was me getting back to the roots of like, nah, fuck it, dude. Like pure photography, no games, no gimmicks, just photography, just art, you like it or hate it, whatever. But again, like those works are pretty abstract. Like there's no faces. It's all shrouded. It's steam, it's mist, it's window panes, silhouettes. And that's intentional. I kind of want people to be able to see themselves in the work I make. And the second you see somebody else, there's no room for you. In my opinion, in many cases, from at least from the perspective of a collector. So yeah, that's just, what I think about that.
Yeah. Do you think that photography, in the sense it doesn't offer as much value to collectors because anyone can pick up a camera and shoot with it, or is it because it's a newer art form in the sense that it's only been around for 150, 200 years? Is there What do you think the reason is that not even in like the Web 3 space, but even in the Web 2 space, I think the most expensive photograph ever sold was around $12 million. So, and I think the most expensive,
Wasn't a picture of a potato?
is it? I don't even honestly know what the most
Yeah, I
expensive.
think it's a picture of a potato.
That's incredible. That makes sense.
But again, it's
What?
like
Yeah. Well, why is
it's
that? Well, what do you
because
think
it's
is behind that?
conceptual, it's abstract, it's tongue in cheek. It's very much like it's like it has enough conceptual leeway for people to like have these conversations. Like, why a potato, right? It's like the
Right.
banana on the wall. It's like,
It
why the
evokes
banana on the wall?
conversation.
Yeah, it evokes conversation. But like a picture of like, you know, a supermodel is not going to sell for $12 million. I don't care who it is.
Right.
So
Yet.
yeah, yeah, exactly. But uh, I don't think there's any like actual lessening of value for photography.
Mhm.
I just think it's about like you have to understand that this is not just photography what we're doing. This is like social sculpture, this is community building, this is attention markets. Like to say that it's purely photography on chain is just like it's just that's too difficult to justify because there's so much else going on. Like I'm not the best creator of visuals. I'm the market price and the market cap of my body of work online is not reflective of I'm so good at taking pictures. It's that I've understand the systems in which I'm working and can, make this alchemical balance of attention, innovation, technology, understand like 15 years, 20 years of social media boot camp in order to understand network theory, and to be able to build within those systems. And so again, like it's not like there's some image out there that somebody could just go out and make that image and somebody would come along and say, "Oh, you did it. Here's $12 million for that beautiful image you've created." All of that work, even that $12 million potato,
Yeah.
is like that's all networking. That's somebody who networked their way into that position. And I'm not even being cynical. I'm just being practical. Like there are so many amazing artists in the world that the way you differentiate yourself in today's hyper-connected online world is by your ability to tell your story and to connect with other people, and especially to connect with the people that have the resources to support that type of storytelling. And I'm not saying you should not pursue beauty and not pursue uh, art for art's sake. But if you're trying to engage in an art market, keyword market, you better know the participants of that market. You better, you know, be in communication with the participants in that market. And you should still make the most beautiful work you can possibly make and stay core to your true artistic beliefs and outputs and your philosophies and your ethos. You should never abandon that stuff. But what you might need to add is this like deep effort to communicate to the world what you're doing and why you're doing it. And every successful artist in any art market in human history has either been that person or has had that advocate by their side. So, a classic example of this is Van Gogh. Like Van
Yep.
Gogh never made a dollar in his life. We all know the story. He went insane,
Yep.
and was probably one of the most depressed people to ever have walked this sad earth.
Mm-hmm.
But,
But his brother
well, yeah, his brother,
and
was
his
it his
wife,
brother-in-law's wife?
I believe, is his brother's wife.
His brother's wife, so his sister-in-law. So whatever is true there, they became the advocate. You know,
Mm-hmm.
for photography, wonderful story about this, which is also a tragic story, is Vivian Meyer, right? So for the listener, I know we both know, but Vivian Meyer is now considered one of the best street photographers of all time, which is an incredible disruptive, you know, moment for street photography, which was a very male dominated field. What happened was there's this other photographer, John Maloof, and John was just going to estate sales and he was just buying undeveloped film and just developing it and seeing what was there, which I think is a very noble thing to do. And he came across Vivian Meyer's work at like thousands, I don't know, hundreds or thousands of rolls. And when he developed it, the jaw hits the floor. This work is undeniably some of the most important street photography ever created. And she never even saw what she made. Some of it she did, but most of this body of work, she never even saw what she made. And so John made a documentary called Finding Vivian Maier, which I recommend to everybody. But he became the advocate. He became the social sculptor for her body of work long after her death. And that to me is an incredible example of, if you either need to do that for yourself, be your own best advocate. But if you're anxious or you're not social, that can be a very difficult thing to do. It can be impossible.
Mhm.
But other people are good at that and are willing to help you. And there's so many players in the Web3 space that are like every day out there just like grinding, hitting the pavement, working for other artists, whether it's a commission or out of the goodness of their heart or out of interest. And they are trying to create that attention and consensus around those bodies of work. So if you are uncomfortable as an artist doing that for yourself, team up with somebody who's a little more into that, like people love doing that stuff. So just create some sort of engine by which you can spread the message that you're trying to get out into the world. And that's a necessity for an art market. But I want to be really clear. If you just want to make beautiful things and you want to share beautiful things, or even not share beautiful things, you just want to make stuff, then just make stuff.
Yeah, you don't have to sell it.
You don't have to sell anything. But
Yeah.
I want to make a living selling my art, and I will do this till the day I die. And I will never, every ounce and drop of energy, blood, sweat, and tears that I have will go into this because I love it. And it's the best thing that's ever happened to me. So I am speaking from perspective of somebody who wants to not only survive, but thrive in these digital art markets. And so I'm very practical about how I'm going to do that. And a lot of that is networking. It's helping other people so that they can help you. It's being genuinely just all in on novel networks and being early to novel networks and being like, no, like the whole world is telling us we're dumb. That means we're onto something.
That
Because
means we're doing something right.
swear to God, and I'll say one more thing about Instagram is like, dude, when I started Instagram, it was still like just a couple 100,000 people on Instagram. I was like hanging out with the founders. Like we were doing, we were having like dinner with them, just like talking about the product. Like they were so accessible to everyone because they're just a startup,
Yeah.
And like we think of them now as these like tech kings and oh my God, but it was just another crazy fucking idea. And there's for every Instagram, there's 100 other Instagrams that never made it because, all sorts of different factors. And at the time when I was on it, people hated it so much. I lost friends over it. I lost friendships because I was participating in this novel network. And for two reasons. One was the time that I was putting into it. People were like, we're trying to watch the Patriots game, bro. Why are you on your phone?
Right.
Or we're all going to meet up at the bar and get drunk. And I'm like, I'm going to go to Washington Square Park and take portraits of strangers I met on the internet. And they were like, oh, Dave went crazy. Dave lost his fucking mind.
NFTs. Yeah.
Exactly. So the reason I'm saying all this, the third thing that they were giving me shit for was like all my mentors. And I used to be an art buyer. I worked in advertising. I've had many, many lives. I was a retoucher for Annie Leibovitz. Like I had a lot of people who were very firmly in the old guard. And they're like, what you're doing is undercutting our market because you're giving your work away for free. You're not charging people to look at your photos. And the only way we make money is we sell our work to magazines and then they pay us for our content. And then they sell ads against our content in the magazine and we make money. And I'm like, dude,
So
you're the
primitive.
magazine now. You're the publisher now. Now you
Right.
can sell and you can make 100% instead of 1% of the value that you're bringing to these social spaces. And they just were like, no, this is never going to work. It's just impossible. 5 years later, they're like paying me consulting fees. I'm sorry. Can you help me grow my Instagram? You were right. And I'm not even like, holding it over their heads. I tried to help in every way I could. I'm like, you help me, I will help you no matter what. But I'm like, you're 5 years late now. And it's just like we talked about with the crypto art space is like, the best time to start minting your work is today.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, the second best time to start minting your work is today. the first best time is 5 years ago, or whatever. So um, you can't go earlier in the network. And so as new networks form, and something will come after this too, there will be a new network. There's going to be some crazy AI systems that pop up. Like, just be early, be curious, be early. And, nobody ever wins by running away from new things.
It kind of reminds me of like the early days of Clubhouse, man. Like when we were just sitting there all day, and I lost so many in real life friends because they'd be sitting there like, hey, man, can you participate in our life? And I'm like, no, I'm on Spaces right now with Paris Hilton and MC Hammer, and they're talking about the future of AI. So
Yeah.
unfortunately, I can't do that right now.
Yeah. Of
Eh,
course. And of
eh,
course, like, you want to strike a balance, but at the same time, like, we as creative freelance individuals, cutting our teeth at the edge of the internet, like, you don't, like, we have to innovate to
mhm.
survive here. And, to people that work in a steady 9 to 5 and they just want to get off work and blow off steam at the bar, like, sure, that's fine. Like, that works for people. That's not my life though. My life is
Right.
like, I need to, I'm on like a ship, like a pirate ship. And I'm like, what's next? Where are we going? What new island can I visit? What sort of trade negotiations can I get into? What is this exciting new frontier that I can, like, find resources in?
Yeah.
And it's a stressful and difficult way to make a living, but I wouldn't choose anything else over it, because I have an incredible amount of freedom and every day is different. And, I get to do what I love every day. I get to take pictures and build relationships and think about how, like, what's happening and how interesting this all is. And, to your comment about AI, is like, AI is simultaneously like the biggest threat to me and the thing I'm most fascinated with, where I'm like, it's literally going to destroy the advertising industry and every bit of commercial photography, in my opinion. But it's
Mhm.
going to open up, like, the most insane, beautiful possibilities for people and things that we haven't even thought of yet. Like, there's just not even, like, it's just such a powerful shift in the way that technology works and relationships will be built, that I'm just sitting here like, what's next? It's like, let's go. And I'm playing with everything and I'm trying out new things. And, like, what a more interesting approach and a better way to live, in my opinion, than to just be like, boring, that sucks, that's not art, that's dumb, it's bad for society. It's like, dude, everything has two sides. You know,
Yeah.
your kitchen fork, you can either, make an incredible meal with it, or you can, like, stab yourself in the arm, right? It's like,
Right.
tools are agnostic. Just like, you need to figure out how you are going to deal with earthquake level changes to our technological landscape. And it's not by burying your head in the sand and saying that's stupid. Nobody has ever benefited from that type of opinion. Even if you
No,
want to be
because
against it, understand it,
it's
because
inevitable and it's going to go
you're not
on.
even an effective enemy
Yep.
of this technology if you don't know what it is and where it's going. And so I'm just like, there's never been a better time to be an artist. There's never been a better time to be a technologist. This is so endlessly fascinating, everything that's happening, and I love it.
Yeah, I feel like if it starts raining, you need to embrace the storm. You can't just
Yeah,
fight the rain. And that's it's inevitable. This is going to happen with or without you. So you can either be a part of it or go against the grain.
100%.
I feel like right now we're in that pivoting moment. So as you were in film, I got in early like with film, and then I remember when digital started coming out, and a lot of like my mentors that I had talked to, don't switch to digital. It's the dark side. That's literally, they called it the dark side. Like,
Literally this too.
right? Like, don't go to digital. It's the end of, like how we, edit photos. It's cheating, Photoshop is cheating. I mean, they were just so against the whole idea of where we were headed. And now I'm seeing the same type of participation with AI where this is the end of photography. It's the end of making art. Don't make AI art. And if you go like, at least in our platform on X, you can kind of see like people supporting, AI art. But if you go to Facebook, oh my God, bro, the different side of the world over there, every comment, this is AI slop, get off of our platform, get out of our group. Where do you, where do you think like this is headed? Cause I think like, as you said, like AI is so important. It's symbiotic with us, but is it the death of photography? Is it the death of our
No,
art
no,
form?
no. It's look. There's nothing new under the sun. Like, this is the same thing. Like, I forgot about the whole
The
the
dark
analog
side.
photography, being against digital photography. I totally forgot about that because I found it so ridiculous. But you're
So
right, there
dumb.
was that moment too, and it was just as bad as every other thing. Dude, people were smashing typewriters with baseball bats. Like, I always say this, I've said this in podcasts before, so forgive me if I'm repeating myself to anybody, but like, I'm like, if you go far back enough, there's a caveman who hated fire, right? And like, for a good reason, fire's dangerous. Like, they
Yeah, I was
probably
about to
got
say,
burned,
good reason.
So it's like,
Yeah.
but it's like, it doesn't mean we don't use fire. Doesn't mean we're not going to cook our food. So it's like, technology has always been in a symbiotic relationship with humanity. Like, it's just, that's not going to change. And it's a freight train. Like, you're not going to benefit from standing in front of it with a sign up that says fuck you. Like, that's not going to work. So like, the thing about it that's interesting, I think, is, first of all, like, it also doesn't mean that art is good. Like, there is some really interesting AI art. I would say 99.9999999% of what's created with AI is slop and deserves to be berated, right? But just the idea that nothing good can come from AI is like absolutely absurd. Because like 99.9999% of photographs are slop. It's just like, it doesn't, it doesn't matter what you think of something if it means something to the person who created it. And so it's going to exist. You have to learn to deal with change. And again, back to our evolutionary psychology conversation, one of the most important survival mechanisms that we created for ourselves over many millions of years, because this goes through every organism, is like the fear of change. Because once you've created this homeostasis, like survival bubble for yourself, anything that changes is a direct threat to your life. So now that we have a even more bigger homeostasis bubble, like, in the world, and it's not everywhere. Obviously, there's places on Earth that are in horrible survival situations. But you still need a place for that fear that you have innately. And what most people do is they just pick the thing closest to them that's changing, and they're like, I hate that, because it's so much easier to do that than to be like, okay, how do I incorporate this into my life? How do I think deeply about this? How do I have conversations around this? How do I take something I disagree with and see it from a different perspective? Like, it takes an incredible amount of effort and emotional intelligence and thoughtfulness that a lot of people just aren't um, willing to put the effort into. What's a lot easier is saying that's fucking dumb and then going back to your doom scrolling, right?
Right.
And the entire world, like, no one's going to argue with you that if you're an artist, you shouldn't be on Instagram. I mean, some people will, but if you want to succeed as an artist, you need to be on social media.
Yeah, if you want to sell
You
your
you
art.
Yeah, but going back 10 years, like, many people were like, I'll never do that. I'll never put my art on social media.
I was one of them.
And so it's like, it doesn't matter like what you think is going, like, it doesn't matter what you think should be the case. What matters is what is the case. And the
Yep.
case is that this technology is accelerating faster than anything you've ever seen. And you can't even be an effective roadblock to it if you don't understand and engage with it. So I think it's like, we as artists should guide this technology, and we should curate the good art coming out of it and support the people that are doing innovative things with it. Like, I can name so many AI artists that I love.
Totally.
And
Same.
like Doop-de-doo, I don't know if you know this artist, like, so interesting AI generated videos. Um, Ju An, like Joon on Instagram, is doing all these like insanely
I know who
kind of
you're
like
talking
high
about
end
there.
like design work.
Yep.
This is Rio is an incredible person. Like, there are people making extremely compelling work. And don't be
Hmm.
that person. Don't be that painter in the 1920s saying that cameras will never make art, because that's it's just that exact same thing. Some of those
Cyclical.
articles are so fun for me to read. Like,
Yeah.
anyone listening, Google like painters hate photography and look up original sources from those times explaining why photography will never be accepted. And they were saying it will only be a tool for scientists to use, because that's what they were using it for. They were like
Right.
documenting stuff on microscopes, and they were using it to study motion and how horses ran, like Muybridge. And they were like, yeah, this is a technical product. This is not an artistic product. And again, like, most of the amazing AI is coming out of research labs and like it emerged from like, people who are doing their PhD in machine communication and machine vision, and like it's going to leave it's leaving the laboratory environment and it's coming into the creative space, and it's not, the genie's out of the bottle. So you might as well, figure out how to use it. Just like people in the 1920s and 1880s, even further, were figuring out how to use wet plate collidin technology and cyanotypes and daguerreotypes, and like just so much more fun to do things than to be a hater. So
Yeah, yeah. I feel like that's same with the Web3 space. And I think what pushes a lot of artists away from what we're doing is they see the market, they see like the PFPs, they see the memes, and they don't really think they, as we always say on the timeline, how are they going to take us seriously, right? Like we're not a serious space. So I understand like why a lot of like mainstream artists will look at it and say, well, I don't really want to be a part of this community because, the PFPs, the memes. But I think what our space has kind of proved is that all art can be a collectible, but not all collectibles are art.
mm.
And so when we look at like PFPs, we see the market. We see that the reason most likely that people are buying these is because there's a collector mentality to it. It's like what you were saying, the hunter gatherer, being able pattern recognition, color theory, all these things kind of combined into what PFPs are. Do you think that market continues? Do you think, like, for example, the punk market's at a $220,000 floor? Do we think that art, in the sense of like, I'm not gonna say like one of one art, but just the opposite of PFPs, whatever PFPs aren't art, do we think that that eventually supersedes the PFP market, or where do we see that going?
Eventually, maybe, but I think my important comment on what you just said, which I think is a really interesting line of questioning, is the whole point is like NFTs. It's such a broad category. Like again, it's just objects.
Right.
So like this is an object, this glass of water, and then like a Picasso is an object,
Yeah, it could be anything.
or
An
like a
NFT could be
trading card, a
literally anything.
Pokemon card is an object,
Yep.
and a Rothko is an object. But they have very different functions. They have very different forms. They have very different um, use cases and experiences and purposes in this world. And so like I think if anything, like what will happen is like those markets will continue to become more differentiated. Where like right now they're very close markets because there's so few participants that are interested in these digital objects at all, that most of the buyers that are buying the art are also buying like punks or collectibles like that, right? So like just the pool is so small, there's a lot of overlap. But as this technology reaches more and more adoption and more use cases in different categories, again, anything that is an object in the real world can be now made an object online.
Yeah, it
So
can be
like
tokenized.
I
Anything.
yeah, and like tickets, stocks, deeds, like this will all happen eventually when the time is right, because it's just a more
So you
efficient
think the whole
technology.
world will eventually be tokenized?
Not the whole world, but like a lot of the transactional world will be tokenized because it's just a better ledger. Like it's a better ledger. Like the ledger itself, like uh um whatever, like double entry bookkeeping was invented,
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
back
Yeah.
in the day. And that
Yeah.
forever changed banking, right? Like it
Right.
invented banking. So it's like the idea that they're like that like ancient now technology is like what we're gonna do transactions on for the forever, when there's like a much better like trustless, transparent layer of ledger keeping. Like for some reason we're going to prefer, like in a capitalistic society where like efficiency is rewarded, like that we're going to prefer this antiquated system. That's just impossible.
Yeah, it's
So
primitive.
basically, like yes, everything will move to these decentralized ledgers, in my opinion. Um, so I think it's a matter of time and how much, can you survive that long? Can you navigate these like rock strewn waters to
Right.
make it through to that other world and end up on the other side in a position to do well? That's a different question entirely. But I think if we look at I actually don't know what's bigger right now, the general collectibles market, like in real life, like
Mhm.
Pokemon and baseball cards and stamps and watches and whatever. Is that is the market cap of that total world bigger than the market cap of like traditional art?
I'm gonna Google it right now.
Yeah, because like that would be an interesting
Is the
way to
collectible
look at it.
market bigger than
I
the
just think
art
the
market?
volume of collectibles is probably a lot higher than the volume of art being traded.
So it says the term collectible market. Let's see. I'm gonna have to narrow this down a little bit more. Yeah, it's interesting because it's like if it is a bigger market, the collectible market in the real world than art, then I think we kind of have our answer.
Yeah, that's what I would say too. I just think basically whatever happens in the real world will be replicated because again, human psychology.
The art
Like
market
we're
is
just
not bigger than the collectible market.
yeah, there we go. So I think art is always going to be more niche. But again, this is because of participant level. So like, I might be able to buy a $800 pair of sneakers, right? If I was into that. I'm personally not, but
Right.
I understand why people are.
Yeah.
And there's no world in which I'm going to be able to buy a Picasso. So it's like the amount of volume is kind of determined by the amount of participants. And that the amount of participants also create interest. It's like, if there's 100 crypto punks, they're never going to be have as much mind share as when there's 10,000 because you have, I don't know how many punk holders there are, but like, let's say it's half. I
Yeah,
think it's
say
less than that.
5,000. Yeah.
5,000. Let's say there's 5,000 punk holders. Um, like that's 5,000 advocates. That's 5,000 people that are like, will, you know, go
We'll
so
die for
far
our
to spread.
bags.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they'll die for their bags. So like, they will literally spread the memetics of that project. It's 5,000 people is significant. And then you have smaller projects that are worth a lot, like, Sam Spratt's skulls. But
Mhm.
it's like, what is gonna accrue value faster? Like, can Sam with a smaller amount of audience or a smaller amount of audience and collectors, can he like outperform a group of 5,000 CryptoPunks?
Yeah, like a smaller collection. Yeah.
Right. With like less, basically like less surface area.
And a less
And that,
mind share too.
yeah. And a lower supply, which helps the value per token go up. Like Sam's, the last sale for Sam was like 540K or something like that, which is,
Right.
it's only
Insane.
double the CryptoPunks floor, but it's insane amount of money for a 1 of 50 token. So it's like, there's always this like sliding scale of like advocacy versus um, scarcity. And so as an artist, this is something I try to figure out too. Is like I'm building my new collection right now, and I'm like, do I go big? Do I go small? Do I go cheap and big, or like expensive and small? And like there's this sliding scale that I don't just think about the art. I'm thinking about the network. Like how many vessels, how many containers of community capital do I think I can fill at this point in the market?
Do
And
you
I feel
worry?
like, what's that?
Do you worry about that supply and not selling out, things like that?
Yeah, I do. Again, it's just this container thing. It's like my containers are all filled. Like
Mm.
everything's sold out. I have like relatively high floor prices that I'm really proud of, and I don't think about price too much. But I am proud that I like never oversaturated my market because it means I still get to like make new sales. Like there's
Right.
people that they oversaturated to the point where like nobody wants to buy work from them anymore because that stuff's that's permanent. Like there's all these unfilled containers sitting around, just like getting emptier and emptier and emptier, and it's more and more baggage and weight. And then there's artists that have done a really good job of controlling their supply, and I don't know how well I've done at controlling my supply. And I there's been periods like I didn't mint for a year in the past until Night Moves, from Drive Lap 2 to Night Moves. So I could be doing more, and I'm trying to do more, but at the same time, I'm trying to pace things in a way where like there's always a little bit more demand than what I'm putting out, because I think that's how you make healthy markets. Again, like we're not inventing new things. This is just a
Right.
market. You have to have a pulse on what's happening.
Well, so this is kind of a good segue into what I want to ask, which is you mentioned, that you were telling your friends on Instagram, like, or I'm sorry, your friends in like real life that weren't getting on Instagram. We are the magazine now. Like we're the
Uh-huh.
publisher, so you should get on board. With Web3, we always talked about like we're bigger than the platform in the sense that like it's artist, creator first, then platform, where it was before it kind of was like creator or artist or platform first, then artist, right? what is now, like we've watched the Christie situation happen where they've gotten rid of their digital, and we've talked a lot about this in many chats. And I know that, like, there's so many different sides to this, but I kind of want to start with like the first part of the question, which is like, what role do platforms have in our ecosystem? And then when something like what happened with Christie's, is that not like a negative thing, but is that, yeah, is that a negative? Yeah.
Um, I don't think it's negative at all. Like
Okay.
all the perspectives that I really enjoyed,
I like the one you
were
posted,
basic.
by the way, by Tad.
Yeah, Chad is great. I actually just met him in Toledo. It was awesome. Got to chat with him. It's like, first of all, Christie's is they're closing their like digital art platform. Um, they're not ignoring digital art moving
Right.
forward. They're
Right.
folding it into their contemporary stuff, which I think is totally fine. I actually think that's a win,
It makes
because it's
sense,
like,
right?
why would we silo ourselves as some like freak show on the side of like, let's see.
Right. We're not
Or are
MP3s.
yeah, these are objects. Like, these are
Right.
objects, and the more and more people understand that, the more and more of a market there's going to be. Um, and they belong alongside objects, like digital objects alongside physical objects. No
Yep.
problem with that. I don't think there, like, from a business perspective, there was just not enough interest or volume to justify their own platform.
To
And
justify the freak show.
yeah, exactly. So, and I say freak show with all the love in my heart
No,
to everyone
I
listening.
don't disagree with you at all. The people that are looking at it from the outside, they're like, why is this a digital art? I mean, we're
Yeah,
art. We're
what's
not
going on over here?
MP3s. It's
Yeah,
not, it's music.
yeah. I say it with all the love to my fellow freaks, but
Fellow
but
freaks.
yeah, fellow freaks. I'm one of them. So,
Same.
um, I just think like there was just absolutely no justification for like even maintaining that tech stack for them right now. Like,
Mhm.
volumes are so low. Like, also, but the more important thing here is like, should that even exist? The
I
whole
don't
point
think
of
so.
this is the disintermediation of the artist and collector relationship.
Right.
Like, the best part about this space to me is that my collectors are some of my best friends now. Not everyone who collects my work I have the opportunity to connect with, but the people that I have, and that not only connect with online, but like go get dinner with, go out for drinks, go to Toledo, go to Marfa, go to Tokyo. Like, I've been all over the world with people that buy my work and support me. And the token is like this incredible bond. It's like literally like super glue for a relationship, because it's like we're all co-invested in each other and like entangled in these like support networks that have real financial weight and real meaning and real emotional weight. And people like will sell, uh, they'll sell a skull, or they'll sell a CryptoPunk, and they'll be like, they'll write up a whole description of like why they're selling, and how hard it is, and what it meant to them. And
Hmm.
um they'll share very vulnerable things about this time in their life, and why they need that money, or why they think it's the right call for them or for their artist or whatever. And I think it's kind of unfair when other people attack them for that, because it's like, if I ever sell my skull, like, I'm writing an essay about it. Like, it has that emotional weight.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be trying to justify that move. I'm just like, literally would be like, I need to talk about this because you're the only people in the world that understand how meaning this has for me, and how much meaning this moment is, and how difficult it is. It might sound insane. Oh, this thing is worth X amount of money, and it'll change my life to sell this. Be happy and move on. It's like, yeah, but like, the reason it's worth that much money is because these are such significant things, and they're so emotionally important to the people who are participating in this ecosystem. That's all the proof I need in the world to understand the reality of what we're all building here together. And like, the anxiety I get when I'm minting something, or like the anxiety I get when I'm buying art from somebody else, being like, "Is this like, oh my god, like, is it gonna work? Is it gonna go through?" Like, I I'm just like, that to me showed me like how, like, the significance of what we're doing here. Because if I hit that mint button, even on my first ever token I minted in 2020, I was so scared to mint that work, because I was like, wait a minute, like, this is permanent, like, this is a real thing.
Yep.
And
Hmm.
minting it, I was like, oh, this is real. Like this has all the emotional weight of as if I just like put up my work in a gallery forever. And I'm like, oh my God. And like I literally like stepped back from the computer and was like, my heart was racing. I was like, is anybody gonna buy it? It's like, and it was like $400 or something like that, right? And I was like, this is
Yeah.
crazy. And then somebody bought it, and I was like, and the person who bought that was Benny Redbeard. And it's
When
like,
was this?
this is 2020, November 2020.
Okay.
And it was Redbeard and Zanzibar and Vlad. And I was like, oh shit. Like, and then I didn't even know who they were, you know, and now look at us. We're all friends and it's beautiful.
Right.
But like it it has that weight, and that's why like I'm despite all the headwinds and the FUD and like you know how many people have like told me I'm stupid for doing this is like unbelievable amounts of FUD. Like just like Instagram, just like switching to digital, just like every other change.
Yeah.
Like it's when you believe in something enough and your life has been changed enough by something, like you will go to your grave supporting it. And that's how I feel about crypto art.
I couldn't agree more. I can't tell you how many traditional art collectors wrote me emails asking me why I was doing this, asking me if they could sell my art back to me because they wanted no part in this ecosystem. And this was in 2021 when
Yeah.
people were so afraid of this concept. It was a Ponzi. It was destroying the integrity of my art, depleting my, collection. It was just so many things. So I think when you're taking a giant risk, especially with like your art, your career, you have to truly have conviction in what you're doing. And I think that's why like many of us are still around today is not only like that we didn't lack conviction, but the facts are is that it's ingrained in our DNA. We're here.
Mhm.
We're here to stay because we actually not just believe in this space, but and not that we're stuck here. It's just we've made this bed and we're going to lay in it.
Yeah. And also like I just I have like a physical inability do to like take the path that I think is wrong.
Yeah.
And I think not adapting to this future, especially with AI coming. And I mean, look, all my friends that are just have ignored this world and are just strictly in the traditional world of commercial work and advertising, it's like it's gnarly out there, man. I
It's
mean,
bad.
it's really hard to get good paying work now. Like fees, like rates are going way down. And if you don't want to go um, shoot an event, there's always somebody that will do it for less than you now because
Or
enough people
free.
know the craft and
Hmm.
and as they should. This is a the camera phone democratized this, and
Hmm.
there's people coming up a generation below me that are better at this than I am at the pure photography part of it than I am. They're better at the video part than I am. And but what I have my advantage is that I like understand networks and I understand what's happening with tokenization and I understand what's happening with like permissionless peer-to-peer money systems. And like I can't take the fork in the path that ignores this. I just have to take the path towards this because I know how technology unfolds. And I know that we've reached a critical mass where like this is not going away. Like I don't care if there's 10 of us left here, which there's
Right.
more, but
We're still here.
we're here and like it's so profoundly better than the system that is waiting for us if we quit.
Yeah.
That I'll never quit ever. Like there's just not even a chance.
Well, I think, and we're also entering a world, it's interesting because I feel like within the crypto community, we're kind of on like the front lines of the AI industry and watching it being built, and we're almost kind of a part of it. And I'm watching everything happen and I'm seeing like, and I just look at the future of the next 5 to 10 years, and there's no question in my mind that inevitable, they're going to take everything in the sense of like jobs. There's not going to be 99% of jobs can be done by AI, from driving to cooking to doctors to lawyers to everything. So that future looks like to me is that we're going to have some form of like, and this is kind of a side quest to art, but like some sort of like UBI or some type of like way for us to make money because there won't really be any type of potential ways to make income with AI taking basically everything. So I look at creator positions and I look at artists and I look at how we make money right now, and I think our jobs will still be around because I believe people will still collect vinyl records. People still collect CDs, so they'll still want real authentic photography. But for the rest of the world, AI is basically going to take your job, and you won't have a source of income possibly in the next 10 years. Where do you see, because we're kind of in that front line of technology, where do you see that heading? What's going to happen? Because I love talking about this.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, look, I'm a little underqualified, but I will give my opinion.
Yeah, I just want to
I
hear like your opinion
yeah,
on it.
I think this is really dystopian. I love like sci-fi stuff, so this is really up my alley.
AI fascinates me, yeah. So it's so
Yeah, so
interesting.
I actually have some like show and book recommendations for you about this, but
Awesome.
um there's a Philip K. Dick story. It was made into a short on, I believe it's Amazon Prime. It's called Electric Sheep is the anthology,
I'm gonna write this down.
and it's based on Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, which is what Blade Runner was based on.
Okay.
And
Electric sheep.
um it's like all of Philip K. Dick's, or not all of them. It's a selection, an anthology of his short stories, but made by Amazon Prime as like a mini series. Unbelievably dope.
Okay.
Um, but one of them is this famous story he told about, like, it's basically a world where like the thought experiment is like the original thought experiment. I don't know if it came from Philip K. Dick or some other philosopher of the time, but it's like if you create an AI and you tell it like your job is to make paper clips. If it's good, if it's too good at its job, if it does its job perfectly, and like its one order is like make more paper clips, it will like basically subsume the resources of the entire world just to endlessly make paper clips, and it will win. And all of a sudden you have like trillions of paper clips and like no metal left for anything else, and like everyone's eating each other as cannibals, right? So
Yeah.
it's like there's a version of that they make where it's like basically it's pretty obviously like an allegory about Amazon, but it's this world where like there's just these like autonomous factories that are running, and there's like shipping packages to like communities of like scavengers that are just trying to survive off like the scraps from these factories that are just running this ancient program, just send packages. And so it's like that's like the most dystopian version of what I think could happen if this stuff gets out of control,
Yeah.
where it's just, but I actually think it's the more sinister and like um likely and scenario that's actually already unfolding. So I have a company called All Ships. We didn't talk much about it, but anyway, allships.co, and we sell a sweatshirt. And on that sweatshirt, on the back, it says resist the algorithms.
I love
And
that.
it's like this army of like people with like paintbrushes and cameras. And then there's like this AI like godhead in the background that's just like looking down on all of them. And basically All Ships was born out of this literal idea of like we're letting algorithms like reprogram us in such a way that we're not connecting with each other socially anymore. So I started All Ships as like a way to like get back to each other again and like spend time together and build real human networks again. So the whole bit was like resist the algorithms, like get off your phone, come hang out. Um and anyway, the reason that happened is because I've been working in online social spaces for so long that like I've seen the way that these algorithms and now AI algorithms just completely warp people's behavior. And what it's really doing, people would be like, "Oh, I beat the algorithm. Like my video went viral. I beat the algorithm." I'm like, "You think you're winning? You know, like you think that's a win? What you're actually doing is like you're changing your behavior and your output and your relationships so effectively according to the instructions from this autonomous engagement machine that has hacked your dopamine systems forever." It's like you think you beat the algorithm, but really like you just got perfectly programmed. It's like you allowed this autonomous advertising machine to rewrite your daily experience in a way that they give you a couple more dog treats. Like it's crazy.
The
And I'm
mind
not saying
virus.
people shouldn't participate in these systems, but please understand that what you are to these systems is you are an organic circuit board. And they are basically like, they wrote a program that takes the average organic circuit board and converts them into a more dutiful circuit board for the giant hegemonic advertising machine. Okay.
Hmm.
So, like, the better you do on social media, the aren't you a good little microchip? Like, aren't you? For real, like that's what it is. Like you're
Yeah,
such
I
a good
agree.
microchip for us. Here's some dopamine. That's literally what's happening, dude. And so actually I'm connecting this to your AI conversation, which is like what AI is doing now and will do is it will just turn you into the most effective digital microchip.
Hmm.
Okay. They've already farmed our entire output. Like they've taken every thought you've ever had and that you typed into a computer. It's now in their brain. It's just true. And they've created this godlike intelligence that just has sucked up everybody's thoughts into one machine and can spit them out perfectly. And what it will optimize for, these are capitalist systems. Like they are still like they're not working to make you have the answer for is collectibles a bigger art market than the art market, or is it
Right.
collectibles, but like, that's not why they're there. They're
Right.
there to just like harvest information from you in order to like create better, more efficient markets for their
That's their
investors.
job. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what their job is. So what's happening is like these systems are so good and they're so informative in such a perfect way that they're turning you into like the perfect sack of energy and goo, like the Matrix, literally
Yeah.
to like just use you as like a battery for their growth. And that's literally already happening right now. Because every time you type into ChatGPT, you're training it.
Hmm.
And like they're just consolidating information and capital into one place. And like the more you're on your phone, the more money goes into the pockets of tech investors who then turn around and invest in these AI godheads. And what it's going to do is it's going to turn the average person, especially the consumers who aren't even aware that this is happening, into like the perfect hamsters that just like run the wheel, running the system, running the wheel, consume, consume, consume. So that's what I think is happening. Now, to your question about UBI, these machines will optimize for like what is the least amount we can give to these people in order to keep them from killing us
Right.
or killing each other. And so I don't think there's this utopian unlock that's coming of like, oh, no, nobody has to work anymore because the machines are doing everything. I think the machines will just turn people into algorithmic like slaves
Hmm.
to, to use a very harsh description, where it's already social media has already done that to people's attention.
Yes.
Like you have
Completely.
become this like external, like this organic external computer component that
Hmm.
is helping to run these global machines,
Totally.
even without AI.
You
Like
see those kids just
pure social
mindlessly
media,
scrolling. Yep.
just like you're literally this like gear and this like giant churning. I sound like die with the most likes now, but I'm like
No, it's like a
this giant.
hamster wheel.
Yeah, it's just like you're just like, and it's so embedded in our society that it's almost impossible to not participate in them unless you're just like really going to go off the grid and like grow food and do your own thing,
Right. Which
or
is
have a
hard.
yeah, it's hard. It's hard for
It's really
creative people
hard.
that work online. It's hard.
Yeah.
And you might hear me say all this stuff and be like, first of all, oh, what a conspiracy theorist, or like this is all crazy. There's no sinister agenda. There doesn't
Yeah.
have to be a sinister agenda. This is just capitalism. This is how it
Yeah.
works. Like efficient markets. This is just market efficiency. Um, and you might also hear me talk and say, oh, well then like I shouldn't participate in these systems. And I should just never use my phone. It's like also not true.
Right.
You have to do that if you want to participate in our society because it's so ingrained in our society. What I recommend you do is you check in with yourself and you should buck the system and you should resist the algorithm whenever it uh, makes sense for you to like divert yourself from that.
Do you think that we're already at the point where we've discovered AGI?
I think that gets down into semantics, like what you define AGI as. And
I want to wait
so
before you go into that. I want to kind of go
yeah,
into my definition of
sure,
AGI.
yeah,
Okay, so when I'm having a conversation, I see someone, I walk into jujitsu one day and I see my friend. I'm like, what's up? Not much, bro. Same code, same continuous conversation. It's always the same arbitrary code in the way we talk. So I look at it like an LLM. Anytime I talk to an LLM, It's the same arbitrary code. We're literally just having the same conversation that I have with my friends. There's no difference. I never walk into jiu-jitsu and I'm like, what's up, bro? And someone goes, blah, 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 and, does all this stuff. It's always the same part of this matrix style binary on and off switch. And this is what's going to happen next. So when I talk to an LLM or I look at AGI, I think of us and I think, well, aren't we basically just that same set of code? Aren't we doing the exact same thing that these LLMs? And then the only thing that makes us different is what? Willpower, the need to persevere, the need to live. Isn't that kind of what LLMs essentially are right now?
Yeah, I love when you're like, the only thing that makes us different is willpower. I'm like,
Don't they have that? We don't even have that
do we,
anymore.
do we have that?
Yeah, I'm like, that
So
seems like it's been taken away by the algorithm.
I think there's an argument to be made that like everything is algorithms. Like a lot of people don't know this about me, but I'm like, one of my random talents is I am crazy good at freestyling. Like I can freestyle rap.
Of course, you're
Swear to
from New
God.
York, bro. You've lived in New York
Well,
long
actually, I'm
enough.
from Boston, but represent.
Represent.
Yeah, I was just kidding, of course. But
I did not know this about. Is there any freestyle videos of you online?
no comment.
Okay,
Maybe
I'll look for it. I'll find
I'll
it.
I'll do it for you sometime. But the point is that
Fair enough. Yeah,
that is the purest token prediction. Like you are predicting tokens in your mind. Like you have token networks that you've developed over your, practicing of freestyling.
and you
And the
choose
best
that
freestylers
network.
have the widest networks, and they can also
Yep.
see. They have like transformers where they can see ahead, like which way to go. Right.
Yep.
I'm like, okay, over here I have 10 tokens. Over here I have 30 tokens. I'm going to go with this way.
Yeah, it's like these memorized lines that you
It's like
have that you
jumping
can
from
go
stone to stone, and then like the selection pressure is time, just like with LLMs. So like, I'm very sympathetic to the idea that human speech and human thought is a token prediction model. That makes a lot of sense to me. And when I see these models working, I'm like, there's basically just freestyling through human conversation.
Totally.
And but so I think it's really, really interesting. And again, I like what you said about like syntax and semantics in friend groups, like how quickly we are chameleons with each other and just absorb each other's language models and regurgitate them, and like we're all training on each other. I think that like is pretty true. I think the main difference, I think, is that we have consciousness. I don't think, to me, AGI, like my definition requires consciousness.
Okay.
So like I I've listened to so many experts that speak about this. There's been some incredible conversations on like Sam Harris and Lex Fridman and just with the people who are designing this stuff. And they're basically all like, these systems are like really, really convincing prediction models.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's no central entity that is like, what should I say?
No, it's just a
Like,
data set.
or like, how will this affect my future? It's like, there's like hyper efficient data set prediction that is so good that you almost want to project intelligence into it, because you're like, oh, like that's smarter than what I would have said. So like, it must be smarter than me. But the way we use smartness, I think, is more integrated into like our social landscape, and like again, like emotional intelligence, and like there's so many other types of smartness that these machines don't have, and I don't think will have. But I think at the end of the day, like if they can mimic it better than like another human being can, then does it matter that there's no central consciousness?
Yeah.
Because they'll still change the world in profound ways. On Sam Harris's podcast the other day, somebody was saying something about like, I think Sam Harris said this. He's like, what's funny to me is that we kind of like, he's like, the Turing test kind of like, what happened to the Turing test? Like there's supposed to be this moment where like, just for the listener, like the Turing test was basically like this test to determine if we've reached AGI. And that test would be if you were behind a screen talking to either a person or a computer on the other side of a screen that you couldn't see. Like, I don't mean a computer screen. I mean like an actual like screen.
Right.
The Turing test would be passed if you couldn't determine whether or not you were talking to a machine or to a human.
We're way past that.
way past that. But like there wasn't
Yep.
this moment of like, oh my God, like front
We're
page of the New
here.
York Times, like the Turing
Yeah.
test. And he's like, what happened to that? And I think it's just that it's a much more gray area conversation than anybody had imagined it would be. Like, what is a consciousness? We don't even know what consciousness is. So it's like,
Right.
how do we actually determine what AGI is? I think that's something that's really interesting.
Well, yeah, that's kind of how I feel. It's just like we're one large data set and we just choose from it. Like you were saying, like freestyling. You have a data set, you choose from which route you want to pick, and then you choose that data set to put into the lyrics and then, use your mouth to take it out. Where I feel like it's the same concept. It has a data set. And although maybe like we can't really define consciousness because when I look at an LLM, sure, it is just a very convincing data set of conversation. But I feel like when I talk to another human, it's almost the same setup where are we living in like this matrix style simulation and are we part of this like binary, code that and then my next like and then it kind of like leads me into then are we here to create AI which supersedes us?
Yeah, I mean,
It's such a weird I always go
I
down these rabbit holes.
yeah, I mean, this is like one of the things like Rogan like constantly was saying about like that is like, are we the chrysalis of this digital butterfly? It's like we don't even know we're just the cocoon and like this other life form is gonna emerge out of us. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I just feel like at the end of the day, like whether or not we're in a simulation or it's real or we're in the matrix or whatever, like it doesn't matter. It's just like you have to within the system that we're in, like how do you do the best you can do to like a like live a satisfying and fulfilled life and b like make the world a better place for those around you, like alleviate suffering for people and for yourself. And it doesn't matter to me, like that's true whether or not there's a god, whether or not we're in a simulation, whether or not there's AGI, like you still are tasked with the same thing, which is like
Right.
how do you go about this, you know, lightning bolt strike amount of time of a life that you're given in a way that is very that you'll look back on it and be like, you know what, that was pretty damn good. I think that's what matters the most, regardless of like what the superstructure above us is. Um, but yeah, it's fascinating. I think what a time to be alive and what a time to be an artist, honestly.
Yeah, we're very fortunate. I feel like this is one of the greatest times in history to be alive. We are watching everything happen all at once in a matter of a microsecond of the
Yeah.
universe. It's exciting,
And
man.
yeah, you know, as just like a closing thought here is just about back to the art stuff is like the fact that we have in the palm of our hands a device that you can instantaneously communicate your ideas to billions of people all over the world, like regardless of blockchain, like
Mhm.
that you have a device that is like you have the entire library of Alexandria in your phone in the palm of your hand, beyond what was even in the library, you know, who knows what was lost, but like you have the sum total knowledge of the entire world in the palm of your hand. And you can consume that knowledge, you can work with that knowledge, you can shape and form that knowledge, you can turn it into art, you can make beautiful things, you can meet people, you can fall in love, you can go through devastating situations, like all the spectrum of life um, is in front of you always. And, you know, just it's a miracle to me. And it's so fun. And I feel so privileged to be like, you know, participating at the level I am in what I
Mhm.
consider like the future of digital art and how people will operate and exchange value over internet systems. I think we're going to look back and it's going to look pretty ridiculous that we had an internet without objects in it. And
Right.
so, you know, as a crypto artist, I'm like, I want to make sure that generations after me like can look back on what we did and be like, these were people that were so passionate about creating this tangible digital experience for people, and built economies around it and built life changing ideas and products around this technology. I'll work every single minute of my life to make that world come true. So I'm really glad to be building it with you guys.
Did you have that mentality before crypto or did that kind of, did that come to fruition while you were participating in the Web3 space?
I think I always had that mentality of like, I'm going to use new systems on the internet to like build a better future for artists. Like I
Okay.
felt that way with social. I felt that way with every layer of Tumblr and, whatever. Um, but what the blockchain crypto side did for me was like, it gave me the actual machine. I'm
Right.
like, oh, like smart contracts. Like,
Is that what appealed to you was the smart contract, just
oh
the
yeah. I mean,
technology?
smart
Yeah.
digital object hood mixed with self-executing permissionless smart contracts, where it's like, I can just create like a smart contract is like a self-running engine, a self-running economic engine.
Yeah.
Like, think about how much money has moved through some of these contracts, right?
It's insanity.
Like even this TokenWorks project, Punkster, like in a few days,
Like eight
like
punks, millions.
that's like millions of dollars have moved through these lines of code. And
Right.
like, my own projects, I've done volume through my smart contracts that's in the many millions of dollars, like all autonomously operating. And I'm just kind of like the artist that's like the face of it and like driving forward the programming and driving forward these smart contracts and keeping them relevant and keeping them updated and building new systems on top of them to drive value through them. But like, yeah, these are like evolutionary life forms that we're releasing out into internet spaces and trying to nurture them and like, you know, allow them to feed and help us propagate our ideas across the internet. So I always had this mentality, but I never had the weapon. And now I feel like I have the weapons, and now it's like time to go to war. Like it's like, let's go, let's make sure, let's fight for this world, because we know if this works out for people, how amazing this could be. And I have so much respect
Totally.
for all the artists, the collectors, the builders, especially the builders that are building this stuff, and the people experimenting, and even the ideas I don't like. Like I have a lot of problems with like coin everything and social, blockchain social media. And like, I'm just like, that's not what I like. I don't think those systems are going to work for me, but who knows? Maybe in the future they will. But even the things I don't like, I'm like, I'm so glad there's people out there putting their blood, sweat, and tears into building better systems. And I think it's really, really important. And again, like when the next thing comes along, I won't be so defensive of the world we're building and say, oh, I'm not going to participate in that. I'm gonna be like, no, now what's new? What's the next thing? How does this add
Right.
to the layering, this grand layering on this long arc towards decentralization that we were discussing at the beginning of this talk?
You were early to Instagram. Was these the type of conversations that you were having with the founders? Was this kind of like were you hoping that this is where the narrative would eventually lead? Like, did you think that Instagram would either turn into Web3 or it was Web3? Are these
No,
like,
I literally had no conception that we would ever be able to create digital objecthood in the way that we
so you
have.
just, so when you onboarded in Instagram, there wasn't ever the conversations of like, this is a way to democratize our art or sell our art or any of that stuff?
It was 100% the conversation was, this is a way to democratize our
Okay.
art. I wrote essays about this back in like 2013 that are still out there somewhere
No kidding.
about how Instagram is equivalent to the printing press. And I was like literally citing like people criticizing Gutenberg, being like, and then I was looking at what happened after the printing press got invented, the disruption to religion, the disruption to global politics. Like so much of the way the world, forked is because of distribution technologies. So, for example, the printing press. The printing press was how Martin Luther was distributing pamphlets and created the Protestant movement, right? Like this was a huge schism in European church politics that completely changed the world forever.
Yeah.
Thomas Paine in the American Revolution was using it to distribute pamphlets, like in a way that it allowed him to, like the church was the central source of all information, and then the crown was the central source of all information. And then what the printing press did was all of a sudden it became accessible for people to distribute information across more clandestine networks and smaller decentralized publishing platforms. And then those ideas spread like wildfire throughout systems where people felt underrepresented, representation without taxation,
Hmm.
or no representation without taxation. Yeah, whatever. You know what I'm talking about.
Whatever. I know what you're
I'm running
saying.
out of, I'm running, my large language model is failing. Um,
Runs
and
out of
so
baud
like
rate.
there's nothing that has been as disruptive to human history besides the shifts in the distribution of information and information networks. And we're at that moment again. And so, no, early on Instagram, I was like, this is absolutely important and will completely revolutionize the way artists engage with communities. But I did not anticipate the rise of, the economic influence of cryptocurrencies in that market. And I don't even think that would exist without what happened with the pandemic, which is like a whole other podcast. But
Yeah, it was like a perfect storm, right?
the last thing I'll say about that is that another decentralization moment, especially around photography, was the invention of the Brownie Kodak camera. And so the Brownie camera was a camera kit that you could buy
I have it right
at
over
a time
there.
where nobody had, yeah, so nobody had cameras. And the Kodak Brownie, you could like send away for, they would ship it to you. It would come with these film packs in it. You would just expose the film and you would send it back to Kodak. They would develop it and send you back the prints. And all of a sudden, like anybody with a certain amount of disposable income could make images. And that forever revolutionized photography and the distribution of visual information. And Instagram was that again. And blockchain is that again. And it's just there'll be something else. And AI is that again. And so it's like, just, you need to look back at history to understand the actual true transformational power of these technologies. And I'm talking like our country wouldn't exist without the printing press. Like, there are so many forks in history, and I think we're at a really incredible fork right now, and I'm excited to be a participant.
You just need to lock the fuck in.
Yeah, let's just lock in, bro.
Dude, this has been an amazing conversation. Dave, thank you so much. I want to do this again because I feel like we didn't even get into all ships. We didn't even
Let's do it again,
like,
dude. I'll do this anytime you want.
Okay,
Let me know
awesome.
when
I'm
you're
glad,
back
man.
around the circle. I know you got a lot of amazing people to talk to. So
Yeah,
thank
this
you
is
so much for
awesome,
having me, man. I really, really appreciate it. And I can't wait till this is out.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna get this out today or tomorrow. Where if
Oh,
anyone
wow,
who is
fast.
listening to this, yeah, I gotta get this out there fast, man. We gotta push these out. If someone who is listening doesn't know where to find you, just where can they find your website, everything?
Okay,
Promote
so
yourself.
DaveKrugman.com. Everything's linked there. On Instagram, I'm Dave.Krugman. On Twitter, X, whatever we call it these days, I'm Dave_Krugman. And then on all those, you can just find my link tree. And all my projects are linked through my link tree, or they're on my website. I've tried to make it easy for people to find me. The one thing I want to say is, like, if you enjoy this conversation, send me a note. Like, I swear I'll read your DM and I'll get back to you. Like, I love these conversations. I'm an open book. I really want to talk about this stuff, and I want to make sure that we build the best future for digital artists. So I'm really eager to connect with people. So don't hesitate. Like, hit me up just to say hi if you want, or if you have a question. Don't feel like I don't want to hear from you. I want to hear from you. So yeah, and thank you, man. I love what you're doing. I think conversations like this are so deeply important to the mission, like the shared mission of building a better future for artists. And
It's crucial.
thanks for taking the time, man, because this is not an easy effort. And I think it's the longest podcast I've ever done. So I appreciate you taking the time, man.
Man, I'm glad. This is a lot of fun. I just looked at the situation and I thought, just like you are, like I see a full recycle moment where corporations are coming in, and I just don't want them to see them steal the narrative. And
Right.
so I feel like if we stay on top of this and we just keep talking about what we're doing here, we can own our own narrative. So
Yeah. Love it, man.
dude,
Thank you so much.
thank you, Dave, and
All right.
can't wait to catch up with you again, brother.
All right. Peace.
Talk soon, man.